Hello and welcome to Stitch Warts. My name is Rachel and this is Rowan. She's a little cloth witch doll, and this video I'll talk through how I made and show you how I made the outfit and the wig. So she's got a hat, the wig, the dress, the bag, underwear, stockings and boots and a little bra top. So talking you through making all those. The pattern can be found on the Etsy shop, on the Stitch Warts School of Magical Embroidery Etsy shop. That's sold with the bundle for the basic doll as well, so you can make the whole of Rowan with one bundle. The video for the basic doll is the previous video, so there's one bundle with 2 video tutorials, so it's pretty easy. She's quite a lot of fun to make. I'm also going to be making different outfits for different seasons and the pagan festivals. So there'll be a solstice dress and an emerald dress and all the different ones. So that's going to be quite fun. So they'll also be on the Etsy shop coming soon. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it and I will see you at the end. So this is everything we're going to need to make the wig. So there's some ribbon for tying later. The wig itself cut out, so this is, I've just printed this out on some paper, pinned it and cut it out. You can use the stick and stitch, it's up to you what you do. I've already tried this on the doll and it fits perfectly, so that's all okay. And these are strips that I've cut just by eye. They're about 6-7 millimeters wide, and I've cut this whole lot from a 22 centimeter sheet of felt. So these are 22 centimeters long. I've just gone right across, so this all fit on one sheet, which was handy. There's 12 of these, so there's 6 each side, and these are going to form the braids, the plaiting. I've just got one strand of embroidery floss thread, which I'm just going to do another knot, and I'm going to basically stitch these 2 sides together from the bottom edge to the bottom edge, all around the top. Nice small neat stitches. We don't want to make a big deal of this. It's not embroidery that we particularly want to make a feature of, so just nice and neat. Nice, neat and functional. So we're actually going to stitch these on 2 at a time. So 3 little stitches all on top of each other, and then secure it all inside. And then we do exactly the same the other side. And then there's 2 going in there, and there, another 2 going in there, and the same this side. So here we go, looks a bit like a jellyfish at the moment. But they're all sewn in. Now if you want to, which I'm probably going to do, you can add a little bit of a curve here. So I'm just going to double this up, fold it over, and then you find your centre point, and I'm just putting in just the slightest curve, just take that straight edge off. See, the actual the pattern is for a very basic wig, so you can modify it for your own needs. There we go. So it looks like she's got a bit of a parting going up there now. So we're just going to do a back stitch in a line that's as close to the flesh colour fabric that you've used. So from there and then down. So just doing a back stitch up and over the seam, keeping it as straight as you can and as central as you can to the hair. So the back stitch then is coming back down. If you want to, you can use a little bit of chalk or something to give yourself a line. So you're basically doing a stitch and you're coming up a stitch further apart. So you're missing a stitch and you're coming up, and then you're going back down into the original hole. You're going under and you're missing a stitch, and you're coming up back into the original hole. We're basically doing that all the way down to the bottom of the parting. So I'm just stitching in a couple of red beads, red Rowan berry beads, onto each side of the top of the pigtail. So here are the beads on. Cotton everywhere. I'm just trying to keep the plaiting as flat as I can. I've got 2 strands together to make 1 strand. It's just easier to do this on the doll so I can make sure it's lying nice and flat. Just got the ribbon on. Just want a small bow on these. And trim this off. So I'm just cutting these at an angle. You can stitch these on too if you're frightened of them coming undone. Now, if you've got these at all uneven, I've got a couple there that are a bit longer than the others for some reason, you can just trim them down. And there she is. So there's her wig. Now, if you want to secure this to the doll, you can just stick a couple of stitches in here and here, and at the back, just through the head, and that'll keep it nice and tight on. I'm going to leave mine because I want to be able to remove it and change it. So if you want to be able to have different wigs for different outfits on the same doll, but I think she looks very smart. Oh, keep your wig on, love, keep your wig on. So for the dress, I've got my skirt fabric, which is this lovely ticking stripe, and this piece I've cut at a rectangle which is 75 centimeters by 30 centimeters, which is basically 3.5 A4 sheets all the way along, portrait all the way along. I'm having trouble with words this morning. And for the top, I've got this lovely off-white felt which goes with the kind of off-white of the ticking stripe, and I've got the printout of the top with the embroidery section on. I've put this onto the sulky stick and stitch so that I've got everything in place and I know exactly where this is going, and it even gives an outline for where the stitching goes, just to remind you. So I'm going to stick this on and cut it out. So this is all cut out now, and I've got 2 different size needles for the embroidery, which is what I'm doing next. Got the smaller one for the going through the beads, the red beads with the red thread, and a bigger one for the embroidering the leaves, the back stitch and the chain stitch leaves. And I've decided to use this lighter green, which will look really nice, and also it'll look nice on the grey felt when I come to embroider on the hat and the bag, because I want to be using the same green So to do the leaves, we're doing a chain stitch for each one. So I've just finished coming up the stem, so I've got my thread already at the base of the leaf, so that's just in the right place. So we come in either in the hole, in the same hole, or right next to it, and then you come out at the end of this leaf, and then before your needle is all the way through, you're just bringing your thread around to make a loop, and then as you pull it, it makes a nice little chain, hence the name. So, and then just to secure it, you go back down a little tiny stitch just to secure the shape. Coming back in right close to it, and then out at the other end of the leaf, around, pull it out. Don't put it too tight because you'll lose the shape. So gently does it, and then back in. And I want to come down the stem to do these, so on the back, just to make it a little bit neater, I'm going to just be tucking this thread in until I get to about the point where I need to be. And then you're able to start coming up in the other leaves. For the berries, you just want one strand of thread on a very small needle, and make sure that your needle will go through the tiny bead hole and the sequin. So you need 3 sequins, she says. Oh, there it is. Yep. I thought it vanished. I do. These sequins tend to be disappearing all over the place. And 3 beads, 3 red beads. So to start off, you come up through the middle and then put a little securing stitch in. Even though I've knotted it, it's quite nice to do another one, just to be sure. Then the sequin, goes on the needle, and the bead, and then go back down through the sequin, make sure it's in the right place, and then come up and do the whole thing again, and then do the same for the other 2. So there's the Rowan berries and leaves all embroidered on the top part. Just need now to dissolve all this stick and stitch, so that's a little bit more time consuming, unfortunately, but it's necessary if you want to have all this in place and easy to embroider. So this needs to be soaked under the a warm tap, warm water, and just rub it with your fingers, and then pat the whole thing dry between a towel. Don't wring it out because you'll ruin the felt, but pat the whole thing dry, and then when it's dry, we'll give it a press, and then we'll be ready to assemble, put the skirt on. While the top is drying for an hour or 2, I'm going to be doing the hem on this skirt. So just one long end, because the other end's going to be attached to the skirt top. So we need to double hem one long end. So we're coming in a centimetre, and then we're double turning another centimetre. I'm going to be matching up these stripes as much as possible, and then just press it with an iron. Just keep checking as you go that your two sides are the same. Just need to do the other double hem now. Right, so I've got my hem all pressed and I've given the material a good press as well. I've actually come up to a little bit further than 1 centimetre on mine, but that's fine. There's enough fabric. The skirt's quite long, so you've got a bit of a leeway. So I'm just double checking again that the two ends are the same. So we want the fabric to be the same width all the way through. That's absolutely fine. Now I'm going to do a running stitch all the way across, about between 5 and 7 millimeters from the bottom edge. You can do this on your sewing machine or by hand. It's entirely up to you. Now, you don't have to do a straight running stitch if you want something a bit more decorative. I've decided on a zigzaggy stitch, so yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Right, this is all dry and I'm just giving it a really good press now. It does tend to shrivel up a bit when it's been wet. I'm just going to put the right sides together now, and I'm going to join one side. I'm only going to do one side because it's going to make it easier to attach the skirt. So I'm just doing one side. I'm just going to sew in about 7 millimeters again through the arm and down the edge, and then we're going to attach the top of the skirt. You need to do a running stitch. You can do this by hand or on your machine, but secure one end and then leave the other end loose so that you can pull the cotton and make your gathers, and then even these out as much as you can. Now the width of the top of the skirt needs to go from the seam that you've sewn right to the edge of the garment, because we're going to be sewing down the skirt as well this side, so it needs to go right to the edge, and that needs to be doubled because it needs to go around the top. So get the width first and then even out your gathers. Now then, when you come to attach your skirt to your top, put it the right way around. And you want to be pinning it on this side because this is the side you're going to be top stitching, so it's going to be easier to take your pins out as you go. So line up your first edge, you're coming about 1 centimetre overlap. And then just pin it all the way around, and then your last bit of top, your last edge of top will line up with the last edge, the other edge of your skirt. Make sure that your pleats, your gathers haven't come undone like mine have, so you just tighten those up and even them out as you go. When you get to the edge that you've seamed, just open up the seams so that they lie nice and flat, so you can pin them on. It looks a bit neater, a bit easier. There we go. It's all pinned on, so I'm just going to check inside just to make sure everything's caught in, and then we just need to do a running stitch then, nice and easy. We just do a running stitch from one end across the bottom, about 2-3 millimeters in from the edge of the skirt, so you're top stitching across, catching in all those gathers, taking out the pins as you go. You can either do this by hand or on your machine, it's up to you. Okay, so here it is so far. So now we need to turn it right sides in again. So you've got the embroidery on the inside again, and then we're going to do a seam to join all the skirt up and the top. So we're going to go from the armhole right the way through the bodice, down the side, and then all the way down to the hem. The last thing to do is to just where you've got your seam on where the sleeve meets the body part of the thing, it might just pucker, so you're just going to be cutting, just snipping. I'll just do 3 small snips. Be careful not to cut into your seam, but just snip this, and this just makes it lie nice and flat. Just give it another final press so all those seams are all nice and flat. You've spent such a lot of time making this, so this is just the nice final stages, make it look beautiful. So pressing, got those seams nice, and just trimming off the little bits of cotton that you can see as you go. So any loose threads, just get rid of them. And the dress is all done. So here's the pieces for the bag, nice and simple. This is just a strip that I cut for the strap, right across the 22cm square of felt. So I've just rounded the ends. It's about 7mm wide. It's fine. And then these pieces, this is the back of the bag. This bit with the socky stick and stitch, this has got the embroidery piece on, so this is going to be helpful for placement. And then, so the embroidery is done, and then it's just stitched around the edge and the handle attached with a little bead. It's really easy. I'll be showing you as I go. So the leaves are stitched on the same as the leaves on the dress front, with the same green. Just 3 strands again. And now I'm going to use these, I've got these little frosty white beads. So this is going to be like a symbol of the flowers, the spring flowers that the Rowan has. So they're going to get stitched on with one strand of the white floss. So we're going to be putting it all together now. So we've got the dried and pressed little felt piece with the embroidery for the front of the back, and the strap, some thread in black for the whip stitch and red for the berries, 2 little beads to go on the end of the strap, biggish needle to get the thread through, and some sharp scissors. So I'm just whip stitching the bag all the way around, from this edge to this edge, all the way around the bottom. I'm using 2 strands of the black floss, but you can use a dark grey if you have some. And when you get to the end, you can, if you've got enough thread left, I'm just going to come in to attach the handle strap. I'm leaving about 1 centimetre from the end of the thing itself. And I'm just sewing it onto the, oh, now it's come out the needle. But I'll tell you anyway, I'm just going to sew it onto the edge of the bag and then do a couple of stitches and then add the red bubble. Do the same the other side. There's a little tiny bag. Make sure you don't have the handle twisted when you're sticking it on, putting it on. The beads are just sewn on with a couple of threads of the red floss. I think it's quite cute. Right, for making the hat, I'm going to need at least two of these sheets of felt. I don't have 2 of the dark colour, but what I thought would be really nice to do is to do the top part of the hat and the top brim in the dark felt, and then do the underneath of the brim in this lighter kind of buffy colour. The actual pattern, so this is the brim, and this needs to be cut on the fold to make a circle, and this is the cone that fits on the top. So I want one of these cut in the same colour as the cone, so I'm going to try hopefully and get 2 of these, this whole circle out of here and the cone. I'm not sure if it's going to work yet. and then a full circle on this colour. The pattern itself, I've drawn it so that the inside piece that fits the head isn't an actual circle. So this section here is slightly wider than this section here because the doll's head is flat. So in order to make it fit perfectly, I've drawn the circle is an actual kind of oval shape. So it's going to be kind of a flat, wide oval. But because of that, you need to make sure that when you're placing your cone, because this will be folded into the cone, that the seam goes on the broad bit of the brim, so on this bit. So this is going to go at the back of her head, and then the embroidery on the cone will be at the front, so that'll be on the other section, on the broad side also of the brim. Hope that makes sense. Makes perfect sense to me, obviously. I really hope it makes sense to you. Right, so that's great. So I'm going to be able to get a full circle out of this piece. I've just cut the cone piece out of the corner, and I've stuck the brim section in the other corner. So this now gets folded, and these two sections get cut together. So I'm just going to pin this together so it doesn't move about while I'm cutting it. So I'm just folding the felt on the dashed line where it says fold actually on the pattern, so it's pretty easy. And then you just cut both pieces together. And then also cut around this section of the where the head goes in, and then do the same on this bit. So this just pulls off. Be very careful, just take a few fibres, but it's okay. So look, you see what I mean about the hole not being circle? But that's going to fit the doll's head much better, because the doll's head will be a little bit flat. So I'm going to do the same on here. So this sticks down pretty well. And then pin it and cut it just the same as your top piece. Just cutting this cone down to the line. And also on the pattern there's a few snips at the bottom. So these are going to make little tabs in which you insert the felt inside the hat brims, so you're kind of sandwiching them inside the hat brim. Try and get these the same length all the way around. If you can do that, it'll be much easier when you come to sew them on. I'm going to be embroidering this first, and this is going to be exactly the same as we did the bag. So that's the embroidery finished. So this has been soaked in warm water to get the sulky sticking stitch off, and dried and pressed just to bring it back into shape. Sometimes the felt can shrink a little bit. Ironing helps, but what's even better is if you soak the felt before you use it. So yeah, that's just a little tip that's really useful. I'm going to now fold this in half so that the embroidery is inside, so right sides together. And then I'm going to hand stitch this, and I'm going to sew it just a centimetre in from the edge all the way up to make a seam. So now this pointy bit is done, we need to attach that to the bottom section of the hat, the bottom brim. So we're going to be working this way round. We're going to first of all make sure, before we start, we're going to make sure that the back seam is at the back of the hat brim. So you get your oval, the long section is the sides and the shorter part is the back and front. So make sure that is situated like that, and then when you turn it over to sew it, start at the back of the hat and then do tiny stitches, tiny whip stitch around to secure the base of the hat to the brim with no daylight peeping through these tabs, so they're going to be well on top of the brim. So I am just holding this in place as I go, and I am just whip stitching around the inside making sure that I've got no gaps between. So that's all sewn on. You can hardly see the stitches on the top. That's the beauty of having a nice thicker felt, and you can conceal the stitches a bit, so you can hardly see those. So now we need to do the same with this section, similar anyway. So this goes on top, again lining up the brim so that the oval is going lengthways across the hat, and then we're going to do a whip stitch now just to secure the top onto the bit you've already sewn. I've just lined up the bottom brim with the top, so make sure the edges are all lined up, and then just pin it into place before you start sewing the centre. So this is all assembled now with the whip stitch around the top and inside. Now all there is to do is the same stitching, the whip stitch all around the edge. Hat's all finished. Just need to try it on the doll for size now. So I'm going to be using this lovely small green gingham fabric for this particular stocking. So here's the printout sheet. So basically it says here to print 2 of this sheet, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just stick with the one sheet, but I'm going to double the fabric over, so I'm cutting 2 out at a time. So we need 4 of these pieces basically, front and back for each stocking, and then 4 small pieces of lace to go on the top. So the first thing we're going to do is turn these top edges down. So we're going to make a double hem, and I'm going to turn mine down. I'm going to use the lines on the fabric, so that's kind of easy, but it's about 1 centimetre and then another centimetre. So whatever you do, make sure that what you do to one, you do exactly the same to the others, so that they're all the same size, and then just do a little running stitch across. You can either do that by hand or on your machine. And then these are going to get sewn on just so that they cover the stitching across the top of the hem, and just so you can see a little bit of the fabric on the top. You can go right to the edge if you want to. I just like to see a little bit of fabric at the top, so that's kind of personal preference. Just a running stitch across. So I've got all my pieces with a piece of lace on, so they're hemmed and laced. You need to put the right sides together and do the seam all around the edge. So you're going to be sewing like that. Now on my particular doll, I've got a 5mm margin from the edge because that's the width of her legs. So I know that will fit because I've checked it. So just check the fabric against your own doll, just in case the legs are different. And then it gives you your margin to sew round. So just go all the way around, obviously leave the top open, make sure that these top two sections are completely together and one's not higher than the other. There we go. They fit, they're a snug fit, they're supposed to be tighter at the top to stay up, so I think these are probably the hardest of the garments to make because, oh, it's going out of focus, sorry. Hardest of the garments to make because, you know, they do have to fit exactly, but yeah, all good. Right, so the knickers are going to fit up. Oh, she's lost her hair. Oh, wig's fallen off. So the knickers are going to fit absolutely fine. I'm going to have a pretty big seam here. I'm not going to use any elastic. I'm hoping they're just going to slip on and off okay. We shall see. It should be fine. And the bra will fit snugly around, and there's enough here. In fact, you can even cut this down a bit if you need to, for a fastener at the back. So these are going to be made from felt, which is going to be much easier than doing lots of hemming and elastic and stuff. So this is going to be nice simple thing to do. You don't want to be spending hours and hours on something that you're really hardly ever going to see, but it is nice to know that she's, you know, she's properly dressed underneath all her finery. Doing it in white, so that if she has anything with a white top on, this can just go underneath and you can't see it. Can't see the bra, can't see the, I'll be able to see the underwear underneath. I'm going to need to do that on a diagonal. There we go. Yeah, just think about that when you're, unlike me that didn't, when you're placing your pattern, whether you've got enough space across for everything. I could actually have cut this down a little bit at the ends if not, so not a big deal. There's lots of space for flexibility. Just make sure that all these edges are nice and neat because we're not going to be hemming. So these are going to be exactly as you've cut them. Now there's a heart here which I am going to cut out and use that as the template for the red felt heart, the sequin in the middle. So I'm going to use a nice bit of red felt for the heart. Now I can just use your original pattern with the cutout just to make sure you've placed it where it needs to go. Pin it on, and then I'm going to just do a little running stitch around the edge in white, actually, in this white. So I'm just going to use a couple of strands just to give a decorative running stitch around the edge. So the heart's done. I've just got a little embellishment in the middle, just a sequin and a bead, very simple. Just putting the right sides together now and going to stitch. On my doll it's going to be 1 centimetre in from the edge on each side, and then I'm going to just trim it down. So I've just fastened the bra on with a bit of Velcro because that's basically what I had. So just use whatever you've got. You can use hooks and eyes or poppers. I've just sewn on a little bit of Velcro, which has attached it nicely. I can remove it if I need to. I've got a little hanging hook here, which is just a piece of floss, so that I can hang her on the wall in my in my workroom. But there she is. All decent now. Now this is a similar process to the stockings. We're just doing the seam around the inside, the same as the stocking. The trim is a little bit different because that goes on after the boot is assembled, but I'll talk you through it. So I have this lovely gold felt I'm going to be using for these very snazzy boots. I've checked the size of the boot template so that I know it fits. Even with a seam, with a 5mm seam, it's going to fit perfectly around the doll's leg, even with the stocking on, because it's going over the stocking. So just check that everything's going to fit before you start cutting your felt. I'm going to cut 4 of these and then stitch them together. So these are all cut, and now I need to do right sides together and do the seam all the way around. So when these are cut, just try them around and then trim it down to size. I've given quite a lot of extra, but I'm just snipping it right so that they meet, because I'm going to be doing a whip stitch around the top. So do that for both. So these are cut to size. We just put the 2 ends together and then just do a whip stitch over. I don't really want this to be noticeable. It's not a feature, so I'm only using 1 strand of the thread. And the last little bit to do, once you've got your little loop of fur, is stick it on the top. You can either line up the edge with the edge of the boot, or you can put it at the back. It's up to you what's more aesthetically pleasing for you. And I like to just put this on so that it's just poking at the top, so that you can't really see the boot. So I'm giving just about 1/2 centimetre overlap here, and then all we're going to do then is around the top is do a very small stitch, tiny stitch that you can hardly see, just every so often around the top, and then hide the other part of the stitch behind the felt fabric. So basically you do your stitch, little stitch, and then you put your needle in so that it's behind, just behind the white felt, and then you come up and then you do your little stitch that attaches it then to the boot felt. So that has to go all the way through the boot felt and then back again. And then you put your stitch behind the white felt again. I mean, you can just stitch around big stitches inside the boot. I just think it's neater this way. But if it's easier for you, just you're not really going to see it when it's on the doll. But it's, so that's up to you. I just like to try and hide the stitch if I can. There they are, all finished. I was just about to say goodbye, and I've just noticed the most enormous spider in my workshop. So I will hastily say goodbye and get my jam jar ready to dispatch the poor thing outside. So goodbye from Rowan. I'll put the link to the pattern in the description, and wish me luck with the spider, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Hello, Boris. Time to go.